Will join us on exactly what's happened at the border. We'll cover that. We'll tell you the truth, other networks are not. Lindsey Graham will join us. That's all the time we have left. But we'll see you tomorrow at 9. Let not your heart be troubled. There she is.
Oh, right
Laura
at 10
Ingraham.
o'clock. Look, you hit it at 10:05:06. I'm just taking up my time now, going through this.
Excuse me. I didn't take 1 second off your time. It was dead on at the 00 mark. Your clock is
delighted
busted.
to talk to you. You know why, Hannity? I want to find out. Did you already make turkey soup with that deep fried turkey that you made? You have the soup
want to know the truth?
and the yeah.
Okay. There wasn't any left to make any turkey soup.
Oh, please. Oh,
it is the juiciest, moistest, most delicious. It's a butterball turkey fryer. Master built. Go to the web, go to Home Depot, make another turkey, compare it.
This is the worst product placement. You have said this like at least 3 times.
Placement. I am telling you it's the best.
Send me one at this point. I'm getting one from Hannity.
All right. Ingram, you know what I'm going to do?
Yeah.
I am going to send you. I'm going to mail. Text me your address. I have no idea where you live. And I will mail it to your house. I will have it sent to your house tomorrow.
No, but you have to come and cook the turkey. I'm not just doing it. I want you to come and cook it.
What do you mean I have to come and cook the turkey?
I got an apron. Slap it on. Edith, stay in the kitchen.
I will send you explicit instructions. You will be able to figure it out.
We got to get. This is fascinating.
All right, 15-pound turkey. Get this. 45 minutes done.
Okay. Like this, we're doing a cooking. Forget Fox Nation. You and I are just doing the cooking. Forget Ducey with the cooking show. All right, Hannity, great show tonight.
Have a good show.
All right, you take care. I'm Laura Ingraham. This is the Ingraham Angle. From Washington, we have a lot to share with you. Majority Whip Steve Scalise, Tom Homan, Saul Weisenberg, Matt Schlapp, Molly Hemingway, a lot more are going to join us in just moments. But first, let's get into the big news of the day. How to heal a lame duck. Yes, that's the focus of tonight's angle. If you've caught any news about the border crisis in the last 24 hours, you have been subjected to a disgusting and blatant attempt at emotional manipulation. Now, at a time when we actually need something called real reporting, instead we get this.
But look at the photo. See for yourself. That group includes men, women, and several children, some of them trying to cross after being denied access to the port of entry where they could legally claim asylum.
One photo shows a mother struggling to scoop up her children and flee the fumes.
And in this photo, shared around the world, shows a family running from the fumes.
That's it. It's the one photo. On Sunday, in a brazen act of lawlessness, scores of migrants attempted to rush the border, and they placed our agents, our sovereignty, in peril. Border Patrol had two choices. Let them overrun the U.S. border, like what they did to Mexico's or Guatemala's, or use non-lethal tear gas to repel the crowd. Now, these are the only images the media are circulating. Women and children who appear to be running for their lives. The hyperbole, the meter in the hyperbole, was in full tilt mode.
This is a shameful American moment. It's a shameful American moment. Those children, those pictures are the pictures we saw at the end of the Vietnam War.
Now, no one wants to see children in distress. But that comment was an embarrassment. And remember, Donald Trump didn't create this crisis. His foremost responsibility is safeguarding the nation, which is what he's doing. Reporters who are either lazy or agenda-driven are using their own toxic agents to blur the eyes of the public on this critical issue. Now, this is what really happened on Sunday.
The way these people rushed the border was absolutely monstrous. They pushed women and children up front, and then behind those women and children, they started throwing rocks, cement bricks. They started throwing bottles at our Border Patrol agents.
No, just a bunch of modern-day patriots. And as for the mothers and children, well, did they make up for the both of those arrested? No. Here's our San Diego border chief, Rodney Scott.
We ended up making about 42 arrests. Only 8 of those were females, and there were only a few children involved. The vast majority of the people we're dealing with are adult males. Similar to what we saw the first wave of the caravan that came up about a week or so ago.
Now, in total now, about 69 arrests have been made, and the crisis continues to escalate, which the Angle repeatedly warned you would happen. A new migrant caravan from Central America, the second in 6 months, is now headed up through Mexico to the United States this week. Crusading reporters are feeding the narrative that anyone opposed to welcoming these caravanners into our country are cruel, horrible, awful, rotten people. These caravans, it's got to stop. I mean, it's untenable. It's unsustainable. The people in this country want orderly immigration. Well, of course, the atom splitters over at the other networks claimed it was no big deal.
There is no invasion. There is no emergency.
They're panicked about this fake invasion.
For everybody out there that was telling me, no, it's a real story, we're worried about the caravan, they're coming, and Trump's strong enough to... I go back to what I said about Martians coming to my backyard. Well, and they're not coming.
He talked
and the
about
caravan's not coming. The leprosy's not coming.
I thought it's not coming. It's not just the media know-nothings, though, who need to be exposed here. We're making a list, and we're checking it twice. And others have been very naughty as well on this issue. Now, one of the prime drivers of these never-ending caravans are groups such as Pueblos Sin Fronteras and the Chicago-based Centro Sin Fronteras. They've been organizing this caravan and other caravans for months, in fact, years. And Pueblos Sin Fronteras even put out a press release, this was last March, that reads like some type of primer for a borderless world. This is my favorite line in the press release. We demand of Mexico and the United States that they open the borders to the U.S. because we are as much citizens as the people of the countries where we are and or travel. What? Okay, they're not American citizens, but this is a classic citizens of the world claptrap that's been funded by billionaires who want transmigration to be a universal right. Now, number 2 on our naughty list, activist judges. Acting like a super legislature, district court judges continue to frustrate the president's every initiative when it comes to immigration enforcement. Just last week, illegally. Then in Michigan, Judge Mark Goldsmith ordered the release of nearly 100 Iraqis who were incarcerated under the Trump travel ban. Now, all of this explains why the president is running very short on patience.
It's a shame. It's a shame. It's a disgrace, frankly. Some judge sitting in some location very far away is telling our incredible military and law enforcement what to do, and it's not right. And it's been going on like that for a long time.
Now, these nationwide injunctions have got to be stopped. Now, he's absolutely right. Certain judges have completely abandoned their Article III limits and are totally out of control. But Congress, perhaps more than all of the other culprits on this naughty list, deserves the most of the blame here. Now, both parties could have solved this nightmare had they acted to shore up the asylum loopholes while Obama was still president. Democrats should have struck a deal also with Trump while the iron was hot last January. Republicans were willing to grant a pathway to citizenship for nearly 2 million illegals, fixing the DACA problem. He'll do this for a limit on chain migration and visa lottery and, of course, the funding for his border wall. Now, Trump was actually excited about the prospect of this deal.
I will consider that a great achievement to solve the DACA problem. It's been out there for a long time. These are good people. These are people that should be able to stay in this country.
Now, it didn't matter. Schumer rejected this out of hand. It was more important in the end for the Democrats to deny Trump a win on immigration than it was for the Democrats to agree to protect our country and even avoid the type of crisis we see on the border now. Now, at the same time, many weak-kneed Republicans, many of whom are captive to agribusiness or the hospitality or construction industries, were unwilling to go to the mat for the Trump agenda. So nothing ended up getting done. With 12 legislative days left until they lose power in the House and only 15 in the Senate, Republicans must unite and make passing Trump's immigration enforcement agenda a priority. Working through Christmas and shutting down the government, yes, if that's necessary. This is a crisis that must be addressed immediately. And we know that once Nancy has the gavel back, the Democrats' answer to scenes like this will be to just simply allow the situation to worsen, encouraging thousands more to storm our borders and put women and children at risk. The Republicans, meanwhile, have a chance to make this short session of Congress a lot less lame by addressing the most immediate problem facing our country today. But I am telling you, if the Republicans duck it once again, they shouldn't expect to be back in charge anytime soon. And that's the angle. Joining me now with reaction is House Majority Whip Steve Scalise, author of the great new book, Back in the Game, along with Tom Homan, former acting director of ICE and a Fox News contributor. Congressman, let's start with you. The House GOP only has 12 days left. Was I too harsh in my angle there on where I'm laying?
Laura, I think you laid out the landscape really well, and clearly this goes back to Barack Obama's presidency when he created the DACA problem without ever trying to solve it. He said literally, come to America illegally, bring your kids here illegally. He never tried to fix it. They never, in fact, when Pelosi had the House, they had a supermajority in the Senate. They never tried to bring a bill to fix the problem. They wanted a political issue. And so they never tried to fix it. As you pointed out again, President Trump comes into office. Chuck Schumer initially was willing to work with him on a solution to DACA that included funding for the wall. Then the radical left went nuts, and Schumer pulled that deal off the table. We've tried to pass bills through the House to solve the interior loophole problems that you've cited so many times, as well as funding the wall. Not one Democrat. We've had two different approaches on this. So no matter where you are on this, there was a chance for you to vote to solve the problem. Not one Democrat voted for any of those.
Could have shut down the government, right?
Well, we still have, by the way, in the next 2 weeks, the Department of Homeland Security's budget expires at the end of November. And this is going to be one more battle that we're going to have, and it's going to happen in the next few weeks right here.
But hearing Joni Ernst was on one of the other shows last night, or yesterday. I watched it last night. Republican senator from Iowa was basically saying, we can't shut down this government for the wall. We can't do. These are the Republicans that we're dealing with here. I mean, Steve Scalise has done a yeoman's work with everything he's been through to try to stand for the American people. There are not many who will. You've seen this. You and I sat here at this table, Tom, and you said to me, watch what happens. It's going to get worse and worse and worse. And right now we have 5,000 people a week crossing our border illegally, separate from the caravan.
Look, I've been at this game for 34 years, and unfortunately, everything I said is coming true. And I tell you, we had some great Republican congressmen take the bull by the horns. You had McCall Goodlatte bill was a great bill.
Which was great.
And a lot of the Republicans, some of the Republicans didn't support it. Of course, no Democrats did, but that fixed the problem. It fixed the loopholes. It fixed all the loopholes and gave some relief. Perfect bill. And I said it many times in your show, Laura, I don't care if you're Republican, Democrat. There's no downside on securing the border. None.
But Paul Ryan is on his way out. I like him personally, but he has never wanted to fund this wall. I'm going to say it. Everyone, Paul Ryan has never wanted to fund this wall. He didn't want to deal with this problem for a whole bunch of reasons. He was never comfortable with the president's immigration agenda. I think that, looking back, that ended up really hurting the Republicans. If you don't have someone at the helm who's championing what the president is doing, and I don't think McConnell really wanted to do it either. I mean, he talks a good game, but I don't think either of them really wanted to do it.
Yeah, we were able to get $1.5 billion of new funding for border wall in this year's budget. Obviously, we want more. The president's asked for $5 billion. I'd like to see us get there. We've had a number of bills to try to solve that problem. Let me make this point about the end of the year funding for the Department of Homeland Security. When people talk about a government shutdown, they try to use it in a pejorative term to try to scare. Obama used our troops as hostages to try to say, hey, the troops won't get paid unless you give me X, Y, or Z. We have now fully funded the entire Department of Defense, including giving a pay raise to our troops. That goes through September 30th of next year. So now all we're talking about is an important part of government, but it's less than 30%, including the Department of Homeland Security. That's where the wall funding comes in. So there will be no widespread government shutdown. It's all about funding the Department of Homeland Security and building the wall.
Well, I have to add this. In addition to the wall funding, ICE needs funding for beds. Because if ICE can't detain people arrested at the border and there's catch release again, more caravans are going to come. There's no consequence to deterrence. Why would they stop? We need to detain these people.
Rodney Scott, I know you know him. I've interviewed him so many times, including down at the border in San Diego. He said, what we're seeing, contrary to what all of these bleeding heart media types, most of whom would not sponsor illegal immigrants if they had to personally guarantee their economic independence, they would never do it. But they talk a good emotional game when you see the pictures, the sad pictures of the people fleeing But Rodney Scott knows this sector better than anyone, said this. Let's watch.
What I saw on the border yesterday was not people walking up to Border Patrol agents and asking to claim asylum. They were chanting, waving a Honduran flag, and throwing rocks at the agents. If they were truly asylum seekers, they would have just walked up with their hands up and surrendered, and that did not take place.
And I know Rodney Scott is a great American patriot. And I'll add this. Look, the border patrol agents that sent the tear gas out sent it on rock throwers. They didn't send it on women and children. Of course, the wind drifts and that happens. However, I want to throw a shout out to NBC. They did a great story tonight. You know what they did? They interviewed that woman with the 2 children, that picture, and she come out and said that she was coming to the country illegally to join her husband who was illegally in the country, Louisiana. Nothing about fear and persecution. So I hope that's Exhibit A on her future political asylum cases. Exactly what I've said. People are coming here to get a job, or people are coming here to rejoin.
So it's a big lie. Well, what I'm trying to illustrate for people is that we actually need real reporters who put aside whether they don't like Trump, and they say, this is how we got here. This real persecution is happening all over the world. Congressman, you know what's happening to people like Asia Bibi, this woman in Pakistan, Catholic.
And make this point, too, Laura. President Trump was very clear in saying there is a legal way to come to America to seek asylum, and there's an illegal way. We're not going to let you just storm a border and climb a fence. Go to a port of entry and state your case. Make your claim. That's the way to do it.
Mexico's going to help us, I think.
The Tijuana mayor, even the Tijuana mayor has said they're getting overridden with some of these people that are coming to attack law enforcement officers, not to seek asylum. And by the way, most of them passed through at least one other country already.
How many laws did they violate, Tom? How many laws they violate before they get to San Ysidro, on average?
Several. When they enter country illegally, first crime is a misdemeanor. However, a lot of these people, based on our intelligence, have been deported before. So when they enter the country illegally, that's a felony. Yeah. But one thing I want to say, though, for the naysayers and tear guys, need to get this out. For those naysayers, put on a uniform, strap a gun to your hip, get rocks thrown at you, and tell me there wasn't a better response. It was non-lethal law enforcement response that was proper, considering they're being assaulted.
And where were they when the Obama administration was using tear gas?
Oh, yeah, back in 2013, you have to disperse a crowd. How do you disperse a crowd? But Rihanna calls it terrorism, guys. Rihanna's upset. She doesn't have security at her concerts, all right? Let's let everybody through her concerts. Anyone wants to go on stage with Rihanna, not only can they go on stage, but they can get a hot meal at her house afterward. I don't think so. Guys, thanks so much. And what we saw yesterday at the border reminded us that the media hand-wringing over this expanding caravan is getting worse by the day, as I just said. But there is one exchange in particular that stood out. Watch.
I wanted to challenge you on one of the statements that you made in the tail end of the campaign in the midterms, that this caravan was an invasion. As you know, Mr. President,
I consider it to be an invasion.
As you know, Mr. President, the caravan was not an invasion. It's a group of migrants moving up from Central America towards the border with the U.S. Your campaign had an ad showing migrants climbing over walls and so on.
That's true. But they weren't actors.
They're not going to be doing that.
They weren't actors.
They're hundreds of miles away, though. They're hundreds and hundreds of miles away. That's not an invasion.
None of these reporters should still be working in this business. It's a dereliction of duty. There should be a price to be paid there. Joining us now, how the media missed the story from the start, purposely missed the story, is Molly Hemingway, senior editor from The Federalist. Molly, what are the chances that Jim Acosta apologizes for not only getting this wrong, but telling the president he was wrong?
It is really an amazing exchange to go back and look at. It looked bad at the time, the way he was pontificating and giving his opinion, which was not based in fact, the way he was belligerent with that reporter. That was an embarrassment at the time. After this weekend, it is a complete and utter humiliation. And this is the guy who is sort of the mascot of the White House press corps. They've decided to make him the guy that they all rally behind. And he could not have been more wrong about the facts, but he's actually just doing what a lot of media have done. There have been so many false statements said about this caravan, whether it's that it's largely comprised of women and children, or that these are valid asylum seekers, or that there is no criminal element, or that they will never make it to the border, or that they will never scale the border, or that they are no threat to sovereignty and they're no threat to the United States. All of that was completely exploded this weekend, and it would be nice to see taking a picture of one woman and her children and making
I saw that
them
coming a mile away. Didn't you see that a mile away? Once they got the photo of the woman wearing the Tangled shirt, or whatever that cartoon character was, and you knew that was going to be it, because that is the lazy man's way of reporting a story. Lazy, lazy, lazy. Do your job. Put your Trump bias in the back seat for 5 seconds and try to be honest about this story. I find it appalling. I got to play something for you, Molly, that even you may not believe. This is Mike Lupica, who's really good at writing about sports, is now a political guy. This is what he said. Let's watch. I think we have the Mike Lupica. Do we have it? It's coming.
And I keep asking this question. When's the first guy from the caravan going to shoot up a synagogue on a Saturday morning? When's the first person from a caravan going to shoot up a dance club in Southern California or a country music festival in Las Vegas? Every time there's another mass shooting in this country, one of my first reactions after I'm struck again by the horror of the routineness in this country is, please don't let it be an immigrant.
Please don't let it be an immigrant. Real quick, Molly.
Well, human nature is the same across immigrant or non-immigrant populations. What comments like that are doing are saying that you aren't allowed to have a conversation about rule of law, national sovereignty, borders. That's inappropriate.
All right, Molly Hemingway, thanks so much. We have a lot more to get to. This story is breaking as we speak tonight. Stay right there.
Tonight, America's sovereignty is facing a monumental challenge. Over the weekend, you witnessed hundreds of so-called asylum seekers rushing the fencing along our southern border. They attempted to make an illegal crossing by force, hurling rocks, bottles, and other projectiles at our U.S. Border Patrol agents, and they were rebuffed with non-lethal tear gas. This is the crisis, yes, we have been warning you about, and it's about to get much worse. Now, many on the left are demonizing Border Patrol agents. Why? For protecting themselves and our country against what is blatant lawlessness. Some are accusing them of launching chemical weapons attacks, and others literally calling them terrorists, others comparing this to the Holocaust. We have all the madness. We'll call out the left's ignorance, pathetic political posturing on what is a very serious issue. We'll also show you what's really going on at the southern border. DHS Secretary Kristen Nielsen, she'll join us exclusively tonight. Plus, huge news tonight, Jerome Corsi and Paul Manafort refused to go along with the narrative lies of Robert Mueller. This is huge. We will explain why. And also tonight we will preview tomorrow's special election. This is important in Mississippi. The outcome there will determine the future of the U.S. Senate. Also, we'll take you live tonight. President Trump's rally is coming up in a few short minutes. First, it's time for our breaking news opening monologue. All right, as you're watching our monologue, think about these three simple questions. Do we, as a constitutional republic, do we have the right to sovereignty? Do you believe in borders? Do you believe we have a right to protect those borders, protect our sovereignty? Now, for weeks, we've been warning you about the looming crisis at our southern border. Now, at least 5,000 migrants have already arrived in the Mexican border city of Tijuana, with thousands more still on the way. Now, they're all demanding entry into the U.S., most under an asylum designation. But over the weekend, we saw several hundred of these so-called asylum seekers. Look at what they're doing. They're rushing the U.S. border. They're hurling rocks, bottles, other objects over the fencing. 3 Border Patrol officers were struck. We have broken windows, damaged vehicles of Border Patrol. In order to protect the border and themselves, U.S. Border Patrol agents fired non-lethal tear gas to disperse the mob of migrants trying to break across by force. Earlier today, Border Patrol Chief Carla Provost, she described this tense and this scary situation. Take a look.
Our agents were being assaulted. A large group rushed the area, and they were throwing rocks and bottles at my men and women, putting them in harm's way, as well as other members of the caravan. We needed to disperse the group, and with that assaultive nature, it was imperative that we disperse them from the area.
So it wasn't because they seemed to be running toward the United States. It was because they were hitting your Border Patrol with rocks and bottles?
Yes, sir, they were.
And meanwhile, over at Fake News CNN, San Diego's Chief Border Patrol agent Rodney Scott had this to say about those who rushed the border. Take a look.
Explain the decision to use the tear gas, because that is one question I think people have this morning.
So one of our primary missions is to make sure that we keep the border safe and secure. I kind of challenged that this was a peaceful protest, or that the majority of these people were claiming asylum. We ended up making about 42 arrests. Only 8 of those were females, and there were only a few children involved. The vast majority of the people we're dealing with are adult males. Similar to what we saw the first wave of the caravan that came up about a week or so ago, the group immediately started throwing rocks and debris at our agents, taunting the agents. And once our agents were assaulted, and the numbers started growing. We had 2 or 3 agents at a time initially facing hundreds of people at a time. They deployed tear gas to protect themselves and to protect the border. If they were truly asylum seekers, they would have just walked up with their hands up and surrendered, and that did not take place.
And just a few moments ago on the story, Chief Scott also had this to say about the migrants. Let's take a look.
We took this caravan very serious from day one. It's like no caravan we've ever seen before. You've heard reports that caravans happen all the time. That's true, but not caravans that have a propensity for this type of violence and not these massive numbers of people. We watched as they came up through Mexico, the violence that they were subjecting the Mexican police and military to. We prepared accordingly.
More violent than previous caravans. This is a serious situation. We don't want anybody to get hurt, and we do know a lot about those now trying to cross our border. By the way, even on Conspiracy TV, MSNBC, a reporter actually stumbled upon the truth and told it. The majority of migrants at the border, they are not asylum seekers. They're mostly men looking for a better life, and I believe that probably about 99% of them. But we'll tell you more in a second. Take a look.
She says that she is hoping that they give her a chance to work. That's what we've heard from this family. This family hasn't really talked about asylum per se. They're saying that they don't even want to come to the United States. And definitely they're going to be asking for permission to work for 3 to 4 years. From what we've seen, the majority are actually men. And some of these men have not articulated that need for asylum. Instead, they have talked about, going to the United States for a better life and to find work.
Border security should not be a partisan issue. While most individuals who try to immigrate into the U.S., I understand it. They come from countries, no opportunities, poverty, good, decent people. They want what we often take for granted. But it's not always the case. Bad people constantly trying to gain access into our country. I've been down to the border more than anyone else that I know in the media about 13 times. I've witnessed illicit drug smuggling operations, drug warehouses, human trafficking, violent gang members arrested. I sat through a briefing with then Governor Rick Perry, showed 642,000 crimes committed against Texans alone at the hands of illegal immigrants in just a 7-year period. This week, a suspected illegal immigrant charged with killing a Texas teacher during a hit-and-run incident. And according to the DHS, they've identified, along with Mexican officials, over 500 criminals that have infiltrated the migrant caravan. Bad people moving among those that want opportunity, those with criminal records, always actively trying to get into the U.S. In order to protect the safety and security of everyone living here, we've got to protect our borders. If we had a secure wall right now, nobody would be in harm's way. In lieu of a robust border wall, this country will always be vulnerable. You saw it this weekend. Look at the videos. Look at the pictures. As agents forced to defend themselves against hundreds of so-called asylum seekers who are attempting to break into the United States by force. By the way, those who seek asylum don't generally assault U.S. Border Patrol officers. And there are about 10,000 or up to 10,000 more people coming. But not according to the left. Liberals, Democrats, the media now waging a full-scale smear campaign against those defending our rule of law, our country. One Democratic senator actually tweeted, then deleted, a suggestion that the Border Patrol engaged in a chemical weapons attack. Why? By firing tear gas? Rihanna called the Border Patrol's actions, quote, terrorism. And then there's the Democratic, rock star, Ocasio-Cortez tweeting, quote, this, asking to be considered a refugee and applying for status isn't a crime. It wasn't for Jewish families fleeing Germany. It wasn't for targeted families fleeing Rwanda. It wasn't for communities fleeing war-torn Syria. By the way, last time I checked, throwing rocks and bottles at law enforcement generally doesn't count as an application for refugee status. And any comparison, by the way, as Lindsey Graham pointed out in a tweet today, of the Holocaust to modern-day Central America does an extreme disservice to those who suffered and were murdered with unbelievable evil under Nazi Germany. The demonization of the Border Patrol, the Trump administration, continued all over TV. Predictable but sad. Take a look.
We have plenty in this country, plenty to share, plenty for everybody. And I think we need to remember that The reason we're great is because of this melting pot of immigrants.
There has got to be a pragmatic and compassionate answer here that does not involve tear gassing children. That is not who America is.
Using tear gas in this situation does not seem justified. We are investigating the facts on the ground. But the Border Patrol has a history of using unnecessary force.
Here we look at children being subjected to tear gas. That's the United States causing that. That's outrageous.
He's on the wrong side of history and the wrong side of decency.
We are not a military dictatorship. And the military does have a certain level of independence. He is the commander-in-chief. But the military also does have the authority to decide for themselves where there are moral lines that they will or won't cross.
So what should Border Patrol do when they're being hit with rocks and bottles and other things? What you just saw is just pure politics in motion. People literally lying to you. You saw the video. We'll show it again tonight. In 2013, interestingly, during the height of the Obama administration, guess what? Border Patrol agents did the exact same thing. Quote, they used pepper spray to fend off a group of 100 migrants who attempted to rush the same exact port of entry. So where is the mainstream left-wing media's outrage then? You know, where were Democratic tweets? Democrats tweeting dramatic tweets and accusing the president of all sorts of things. Of course, that was then. This is now. And while the security threats of unvetted immigration remain the same, the politics of the left have changed and changed dramatically. We've shown you the video over and over again. They now believe it's politically expedient to push for open borders, unfettered immigration, sanctuary cities, the end of ICE. And that's why Democratic presidential hopeful Kamala Harris actually said, well, there's a perception out there, isn't there, with ICE and the KKK? Now the left is trying to score political points over what is now an actual real crisis. Our Border Patrol agents deserve our protection. The rule of law needs to be adhered to. They don't seem to care about the 500 criminals that Mexico and the U.S. have identified as having infiltrated the caravan. They don't care about the extreme security risks associated with illegal immigration. They sure as hell don't care that each illegal immigrant, according to a study out 3 weeks ago, that successfully enters the country costs you, the American taxpayer, around $70,000 per year. And sadly, the left only cares about winning, no matter what the cost, no matter the damage, no matter the risk. They're not getting rocks hurled at them or bottles hurled at them. Clearly political. Sadly, this is just the beginning. Let me make a prediction. Over the next 2 years, the left's sole focus will be destroy Trump for years. I have warned you, about the 5 forces out to destroy this president. We've had 2 years of nonstop attempts at delegitimizing a duly elected president. You have the Democrats, 1, the mainstream media, 2, the deep state, 3, weak Republicans, 4, never Trumpers. They want to be proven right. So mark my words. As we now head into January, the hate Trump House Representatives, when they take power, those 5 forces will align and spew anti-Trump vitriol every second, every minute, every hour, every day. The good news for us, they will overreach. They will really extend what they think is a mandate that is not. What they won't do, sadly, is anything that will help the people of this country. You, the people, we, the people. And that is right now we have the most radical left-wing House of Representatives this country has ever seen. There are no more moderates. And of course, the deep state side, well, we've been witnessing Mueller's destroy Trump partisan witch hunt play out for the past 558 days. And breaking tonight, this is huge news. Mueller is alleging that his top target, Paul Manafort, remember the target was about loan applications years ago, tax violations years ago. They're saying that he lied to investigators after agreeing to his plea deal. We also learned that Roger Stone's associate, Jerome Corsi, he's rejected a plea deal from Robert Mueller. The deal involved Corsi pleading guilty to 1 count of perjury. Greg Jarrett will join us in a moment. Here's what he noted. What we're seeing here is a classic Mueller-Weissman tactic, using threats and coercion to get people basically to test the lie. In other words, what that usually means is you either tell us what we want you to tell us, you lie, or you're going to get punished. Think about this. If they said what Mueller wanted, Corsi and Manafort, all they have to do is say what they're basically saying they want to hear, they would likely get a better deal. By not doing this, it means both those men know that they may be risking spending the rest of their lives in jail and they have decided not to do it. This is a profound development, and I can't wait to hear the full backstory in both cases. Look at General Flynn, 30-plus years serving his country. The FBI didn't even think he lied. Comey didn't think he lied. Strzok didn't think he lied. But he was on the brink of bankruptcy, had to sell his home to pay his attorneys, so they turned the screws, probably threatened to go after his own son, and now he's awaiting sentencing. And by the way, they didn't even believe he lied. Then there's George Papadopoulos. He's now in jail for 2 weeks. He feels like he was set up big time. Just look at his tweets. He'll be locked up for the next 14 days. We'll talk to him afterwards. And does any of this have anything to do with Russia collusion? Nothing. Because there is none. There is no Trump-Russia collusion. But we have been able to reveal on this program Clinton collusion. But if they cared about collusion, they certainly don't care about that, because if they did, they would look at surveillance abuse, unmasking abuse, leaking intelligence abuse, lying to FISA courts, and committing fraud upon the courts. They would look at the circular leaks of the phony dossier. They'd look at how the dossier was used to lie to the American people before the election and how Hillary paid for those Russian lies. They never told the FISA court this. No one seems to care in Mueller's office. Hillary's bought and paid for Russian lies. Now, this has literally become the biggest travesty of justice, a one-sided witch hunt that has no interest in truth or real Russia collusion. Hillary can pay for Russian lies. They don't care. They can propagandize and lie to the American people. They don't care. Even the author of the dossier, Christopher Steele, even he doesn't stand by the dossier. So my warning is buckle up, because Democrats are going to rehash all of it when Democrats take the House. We'll have a lot more later in the program. But first, in just moments, we're going to take you live, as you can see, to Mississippi. The president is currently about to rally voters ahead of this important runoff tomorrow between Republican Senator Cindy Hyde-Smith and Liberal Democrat Mike Espy. This is a really important race that is definitely in play if you're in Mississippi, because a win for the Republican Hyde-Smith, well, that means an opportunity for the GOP to solidify its lead in the Senate. It's either going to be 53-47 or 52-48. And remember, votes in the Senate are so important, especially when it comes to things like, confirming constitutionalists, originalist justices for the president to make important appointments like replacing Jeff Sessions. And you have Democrat Mike Espy, a far-left liberal, that clearly supports Chuck Schumer and the rest of his radical Democrats already in Washington. He's been dodged by many ethical questions stemming from his recent lobbying work for an alleged war criminal from the West African country, the Ivory Coast. Espy was also forced out of the Clinton administration back in '94 while under investigation for allegedly receiving improper gifts. While he was acquitted of the 30 felony charges, the independent counsel found a pattern of, quote, improper behavior. Now, regardless of what the mainstream media wants you to believe, this race is very simple. Hyde-Smith is a vote for the Trump agenda. That means confirm originalist justices. A vote for Espy is a vote for the swamp and Chuck Schumer. It's that simple. So Mississippi, this race matters, and I hope you vote tomorrow. Okay, now we're awaiting any minute now. The president, I believe, if I see right, there might be Mike Pence up there. I think it is. And he's not on stage yet. We have a lot of news also about the deep state that we're going to get to. Joining us with analysis, the author of the #1 New York Times bestseller, The Russia Hoax, Fox News legal analyst Greg Jarrett, The Hill's executive vice president, investigative columnist John Solomon, Fox News investigative reporter, contributor Sarah Carter. Greg, let's start with Manafort and Corsi. Both of them know what they want, what the special counsel wants to hear. Sure. They're not giving it to them. That means they are risking, maybe both of them, they're older, maybe risking their whole life in jail as a result of just not saying what Mueller's team wants. Explain the process here.
Well, if it's true, they're to be commended for refusing to lie. All too often, overzealous prosecutors don't care about the truth. They care about charges and convictions. And so they use tactics of coercion and threats and bribery and extortion to get people to sign a sheet of paper that they know is a lie in order to implicate someone else based on false evidence. You know, if you and I did that, Sean, it would be suborning perjury. But somehow, over the years, we've allowed the government to do it, and it is unconscionable and it's wrong. And that appears to be what's happening here, but we just don't know quite yet.
Think about this, because they know what they want these guys to say. They know what they want them to say to them. They say it, they probably get out of jail, get a get out of jail free card, get out of jail early card. They both are saying they refuse to do it.
That's right.
To me, that means that takes an act of courage, because spending the rest of your life in jail is not a fun prospect.
It is
John Solomon,
it is an act of courage. And the question is Mueller capable of this? Well, as you pointed out, all we have to do is look at his treatment of Michael Flynn, who told the truth, and yet Mueller went after him, threatening his son, and broke Flynn financially in order to get him to cop a plea to something he honestly didn't do. FBI